So the headphones are on. That means we mean business. So we're going to start our top-down mixing process with Guy's piece. Top-down implies that we start from the top. But before we get there, anything else we need to do before we actually start the journey?
Yeah, the top-down bit is about processing. But before we get to the processing, we need to make sure that we've got a decent rough mix.
Okay.
And that means adjusting sort of the fader balance on average. Now, this is sort of semi-unique to orchestral mixing. I say semi-unique because there's always going to be tweaks that you do with any piece of music.
Sure.
But more so with orchestral mixing, the dynamics from one bar to another in an instrument could be extreme. Whereas if it was let's say a bass guitar in a rock track, you're probably going to set the fader and leave it there for most of the track.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah, well, in an orchestral mix, you might need to do a lot more tweaking than that.
Okay.
So on average, I just want to get a decent fader balance. Some bits will be too quiet, some bits will be too loud, but roughly in the right ballpark.
All right then.
So I want to go through the piece and just pick out those bits that are either too loud or too quiet and adjust the faders.
I see. All right then.
So let's do that. Pull the harp up a little bit. Again, that harp can come up a bit. Didn't get much for a roll there. Again, those temp rolls can come up.
Okay, the temps.
Just more tims generally, I think.
The percussionists love you right now. Ooh.
And
that was a bit much on that one.
Bass
very resonant,
pits.
wasn't it?
Yeah. Bass pizzicatos. There we go. That cello legato. So cello, they've got the tune. That's where we need to be focusing. Violin ones are a little bit hot. Do that bit again, just make sure. Not getting much of that viola. In general, we need a bit of a better balance between those two.
Just before we carry on, just a couple of things. So one, we're obviously getting a good level for that bass pizzicato, but there are still. Are we thinking ahead slightly to going? I know there's things in there that I might want to micro adjust, like specific bits. But right now, on average, is that always the thing you've got to keep in the back of your head?
Yeah, when it settles down.
So ignore those ones that stick out too much in moments. It's all on an average.
This seems, from this point on, it kind of feels like it's all slotted into place.
Yeah.
From here. But earlier on, it is a bit loud. Not too bothered about that just yet.
Okay.
But getting a good balance on these short things.
And with the violins as well, I saw you whack the fader all the way up and then bring it down again. Is that? What's the intention behind that? Is that so you can focus in on the sound?
Yes, exactly that. Just so I know that, first of all, I'm definitely adjusting the right thing.
Yes.
But also just to focus the ear on that, okay, that's the thing that I'm trying to slot into place. But once I've pushed it up, I try to listen to everything around it rather than that sound.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because if you focus on that sound, then it's going to be hard to find the balance because you're very focused on that. Whereas if you listen to everything else, it will be very apparent when it's too loud.
Okay, yeah. Sounds counterintuitive, but it does make sense.
Yeah. So as I adjust the violas, if I just pull them all the way down, I'll boost them so you can hear what part we're looking at. But then once I get to the top and we know that that's what we're listening to, stop listening to the violas. As hard as it is, stop listening to them. And try and listen to everything else around as you pull it down. So we'll try that now. Listen to everything else. So they weren't leaping out, but I know they're there now. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, let's keep going. I still feel like I want a bit more Tims.
Is it because it's close to Tim?
Okay, nice little bit of
that technique was very obvious with the bassoon there.
Farty bassoon there. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, clarinet's got the tune.
It goes up a bit.
Push it up a little bit. Okay, that's got a couple of issues there. We're kind of losing it in certain parts, but we'll come back to that. What is the bass clarinet doing? So that's just sort of supporting the.
It's quite hard to hear, isn't it?
What's the oboe doing?
It's clarinet still.
I didn't want to do that.
Still the clarinet.
I know. It's the oboe that I'm looking for.
Just checking. So we just about want to hear that. Yeah.
Because it's just sort of a colour thing, isn't it?
And we weren't hearing that at all, really.
There we go. Now, who's got the tune here?
Does it go back to the violins by the sounds of it? We do lose the woodwind quite a lot in that section as well, though.
We do. So I think, this could be a creative thing. So at this point, not at this point, but I might be saying to Guy, what do you want more of? Is the violin holding the tune? Because actually, I should just check that I think the oboe and the flute are playing supportive roles. Okay, yeah, so they're just colour. They're not playing the same thing.
So it is the violin then?
Yeah, the violin has got the tune, so... and these are just supportive roles.
Sounds like he's given violin 2 the octave up as well on that one in that section.
Yeah, when it comes in, yeah. Let's just try and get the balance of these first. when the violin 2 comes in with the high part. Okay, Mr. Piccolo.
Down.
Well, in a live situation, you're constantly telling the piccolo, "Wait,
Shut up!
Wait, come down," because they're so they're so high up there.
They cut through.
Yeah, they cut through. There's nothing else in that range usually, and they really do poke out. Samples, we have faders, so and actually, I wasn't hearing the piccolo trill at all. So. There we go. Quite a large boost on that one. Okay, this feels a little bit odd because the tone that I'm getting from the horns and the trumpets is that they're playing moderately loudly, sort of forte maybe. It's not quite. They're not really going for it.
Not blasting.
But hearing that tone, it still feels like they're too low in the mix, because if they were to be playing with that kind of tone in a live situation, then they're going to be a lot louder than what they are.
A lot more forward.
Yeah, a lot more forward. So we're going to grab that and see what we can do with it. What's this doing?
Just doubling it, right, with the shorts?
Yeah, so it's just got some. It's using the two articulations to accent it. So, but the shorts were okay, but the longs needed to come up, I think.
Okay.
Oh, trombones.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
So they're adding the warmth, aren't they? Okay, what's the Shelley doing here?
Bass support. Oh, that's nice.
So the leader there is just to get a little bit more definition out of that, out of those cello parts. That soltasto part. Don't want that poking out too much, but I think that's about right.
Well, the bass gets handed over to the tuba for the last part there as well. I'm just looking ahead a little bit because I hadn't noticed that.
We'll have a look at that in a second. Viola legato, did we hear that?
With the cello there.
Sorry?
They're playing off against the cello leader there, I think, with the complementary part.
Oops, wrong one.
If it was me, I think I'd want a bit more viola.
You think so?
If it was me, I don't know. It might sound bad. Maybe it's a wrong choice.
Yeah, you might be right. But also, might need to revisit the balance across the piece. Okay, just
Actually,
make
that's
sure
not bad.
we're getting our bassoons here. And they're kind of playing with the trombones, I think. Make sure that clarinet legato.
Cool. What's that poking out around bar 28?
The violins.
Is that the violins? Right.
Yeah, we'll revisit those.
Okay. I'm gonna have more of that cymbal, I reckon.
Exactly. I think the cymbal needs a bit more help, so I'm going to grab my gain tool.
We're going in now and doing this just because it's too low.
Yeah, we could definitely do more, with more of a swell on that.
I didn't hear the tam tam. I wasn't listening for it, to be fair.
I completely skipped over it. So there we go. Okay, cool. So now we've got a decent
we're
rough
done.
balance. Shall we give it a run through?
Yeah, let's do it. See if that viola's still too loud. I think it'll be fine. Nice.
Okay, cool. There's still some problems in there. Like the opening cello is a little bit too quiet. There's some bass pizzicatos that are still jumping out a bit too much. Some parts could do with massaging, but for now, that's a reasonably good rough mix.
Do we have to at some point draw a line between what is a good average and what is getting too lost in the weeds of like micro adjustments and stopping ourselves from crossing that line yet when we're doing this method?
Yeah, probably. It's sort of at this point, it's kind of looking for what's good enough.
Okay.
The majority of instruments are sat roughly in the right place.
Yeah, sounds good.
As they go through the track. There might still be some bits to poke out, but that's okay for now.
Okay. So then we go to if we're starting from the top, then we go to the final mix bus, right?
Yes, exactly. So we're going to go to our mix bus over here, and now we're starting to think of the orchestra as one instrument, as we spoke about in the interviews. So we want everything to sound as good as it possibly can, just from the get-go. So we're working from the top down through the various groups. So I want to try and get this track sounding as good as it can, just using this track here. So the first thing, I use this quite a lot, console emulations, just to give a bit of warmth and a tiny bit of saturation. It's sort of that analog console feel, and I use these on all of the group tracks. So I usually set it to a Neve sort of sound, which sounds lovely on orchestra, gives you nice sort of warmth in the low end. The next thing is an EQ. So I've got this linear phase EQ, and it looks complicated if you're not used to this kind of thing.
Talk us through it, Tim.
But
demystify it for us.
It's not as complicated as it looks. So I'm zoomed in quite a lot, so the resolution is
makes it look more dramatic than it actually is.
Yeah, actually. So I'm only getting 2 dB here, so it's not a lot. Nice wide curves, because the wider the curve, the less noticeable it is. If you're using sort of notches and really tight things, then it's going to be more obvious that you've made a change. So what I've got here is I've got a low cut, getting rid of all of this stuff in the really low subs.
What's that below, like 30?
20.
20 something? 20 there, yeah.
Yeah. And you can barely hear it at all. I mean, you may even be able to get away without it, but the information there does tend to build up and start affecting things later on. So we want to get rid of that. Then the sides. So this is only EQing the sides. Whatever's in the center, it's leaving alone. We're just sort of rolling those off. And it's a very gentle curve.
That's to help keep the bass central.
Yeah, right? Because the double basses are really annoying being over on the right. Not as people. They're lovely people. But the fact that they're positioned over on the right when bass in a stereo image, we kind of want it to be in the center.
Yep.
Is a little bit irritating. So we're just rolling off some of that side information in the low end just to try and focus things in a little bit more.
Okay. Then we've got a bit of a bump there at about, what's that, 50, 70? There we go.
60 to 70. So this is sort of the weight of the double basses. Again, we're just getting more focus in the low end and giving it a little bit more warmth.
Is that dynamic?
This one isn't dynamic, no.
It's not. Oh no, it's just because it's in the mids.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's find a part of the track where we've got some bass going on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's our dynamic EQ in the middle.
There is a dynamic EQ in the middle. Lots of mid-range build-up. So again, it's not very much, and it's only getting triggered every now and then, but probably mostly by horns, actually.
And we talked about how every single instrument adds to that mid-range build-up. So having it, when it's overactive, having a decrease rather than a constant, because otherwise you're scooping out the body of a lot of instrument sound.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that that's very lightly touched.
Yeah. So, I mean, the maximum it can come down is -2, but most of the time it's not reaching that. So that's sort of that boxy kind of roomy
Just
noise.
keeping it under control, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Then we've got sort of some harshness here, sort of harshy honkiness going on.
Damn you, brass.
Yeah. It's actually mainly strings.
Yeah, it's strings actually.
So just cutting away some of that. And it's really nice to have a nice dip before you go into a high.
Why is that?
It just sounds a little bit smoother for whatever reason. You know, it just sort of leads into it nicely. So this will mainly be for getting a bit of air into the piece. Doesn't sound harsh or brittle. It's just a bit of air.
Yeah. It's a lot to be said for air being felt rather than heard.
Yeah. It sort of, when you get a little bit, once you get north of sort of 8 to 10k, then it's more of a sort of, it just feels lighter in a way. But this is genuinely adding a little bit more brightness, particularly to strings. Okay.
Okay, so that's our
that.
mix bus EQ.
Yeah. So that's, in fact, let's just do a quick on and off. Everything just feels a little bit neater and tidier. Let me loop the last part of the track, I think, because that's the most active. So if I go from sort of here, and we don't want to have to keep looping back around the end. So come on.
You'll get there.
What the hell? There we go. Yeah. So the next thing I've got on here is a multi-band compressor.
You're using a compressor?
Yes.
You wouldn't do that.
Only in the low end, because I want to just control the lows, especially those bass pizzicatos where they leap out a little bit. So, in fact, even though I just looped that bit, let's come back here a bit. They're just ducking the lows. So when those lows come in, we're just sort of tucking them back in so that they don't jump out and just controls things a little bit.
And actually, had we dived in immediately and started adjusting all of those little bits of the bass pits that just popped out to us, we might not, because that already sounds...
Yeah, it already starts to smooth things out a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because that one activated it quite considerably.
And that's only acting on anything below 200 hertz, which is actually quite high. Generally, I'm a little bit lower than that, but
you must have had your reasons.
Yeah. But, I think it's the key of the piece is just the way it's sort of sat. And finally,
what's this?
A bus compressor.
Ooh.
So this is
more compression.
This is a bit of a funny one because this is based on a Neve 33609. Audioscape created a dupe of the hardware, which they sell for considerably cheaper, and then
this is a model of that dupe.
Kive have then modelled the duplication.
Ah, right.
But then it costs more than your car to buy the real thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, they've done it really well. It works really nicely, and this is quite a smooth compressor and adds a bit of sort of weight and warmth to everything, which is really nice.
So are you using this mostly as an effect than you are for its true compression capabilities?
Well, it is compressing, and it's sort of getting 3 to 4 dB, which seems like a lot, but it's actually not that noticeable. Really, it's a very smooth. It's
quite transparent.
I've got it on a slow setting. It's 2 to 1. It's not doing. It's not a really aggressive compressor. In fact, it's completely the opposite. It can be very aggressive, but not the way I'm using it.
Okay.
So the limiter is out. I've got there's 2 automatic release settings. Automatic 2 sounded nicer to me. You set the gain accordingly, and like I said, it's a ratio of 2 to 1. So I'll have it out and bring it in. Everything just suddenly gets a little bit more lively and warm and just feels just a little bit more polished.
Yep.
So that's what I'm doing with that. And that is our mix bus. So let's go back to that nice bit again, and we'll turn everything off. So we're already getting much closer to the sound we want. The next thing that we're going to do is work our way through the buses.
So we're going one step down to all of our instrument group buses. So where would you start with those?
So the strings...
Just work your way down the mixer?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, basically. I mean, whatever you need to focus on at any given moment. But the strings sort of do most of the heavy lifting generally. So again, I'm going to turn on my sort of console and tape stuff.
Oh, tape machine.
Yeah, so tape, we've already sort of explained the console, but the tape sort of inherently adds a little bit of compression to things. So just the most subtle compression, just to sort of pull things together again, and adds a little bit more warmth. And
it barely looks like it's doing anything at this stage in terms of the settings that you've got it on.
Well, yeah, it's just on the default settings. Just adds a tiny bit of harmonic content as well. So they're just sort of very, very subtle things. The main bulk of the heavy lifting here is being done by the EQ.
Okay.
So we'll just run through it and we can hear what's going on.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So a little bit of a boost here at 80 for the basses. I'll tell you what, I'll solo the strings. Again, getting rid of some of that boxiness. These are very subtle settings, by the way. Like I said, zoom in. The maximum that this goes to is +3 here in the high end. And really cutting out some of this sort of 2K area.
Is that the honkiness you said?
No, it's more of the sort of brittle stuff. Just kind of smooth things out a little bit. Add a little bit more top end. Again, just cleaning things up a little bit.
Yep.
Then we'll move to Harp. We'll ignore the panning thing on there for now. So
That's got a later video.
Just got a Pultec style EQ on here, and let's find the Harp. So just adding a little bit of top end at 8K.
Yeah. Always takes me a second to really understand what I'm looking at with these kinds of EQs.
That's fine. Yeah, they sort of seem a little bit daunting, don't they? But really, all this is saying is you're boosting
By 5 dB at 8K?
at 8K. Yeah,
Done.
exactly. And it's quite a sharp bandwidth actually. How would we bring that up?
So that's what's widening it rather than narrow. Yep.
There you go. That's a bit more natural. Let's do the gliss again with it off.
Yeah, that elevates that. Yeah, really
Just
nice.
adds a little bit of brightness to it, which is cool. All of these things, if you are struggling to hear these things, then don't be too hard on yourself, because it does take training and practice.
Tim's been doing this for a very long time, is what he's trying to say.
But all of these really subtle changes add up to one quite big change. But if you're to make big changes on individual tracks, then you'll end up with something that sounds quite unnatural.
Yeah.
Where do we get to?
So we've just done the harp. What are we going to do next?
So Harp, we're going to skip over the drums just for this time being, because they're on a sort of second layer of
Yeah, we'll do that on the next one.
So brass.
Yes.
Let's go to over here.
Shall we solo them and hear them?
Yeah. So this is another type of console emulation, and I'm driving it a little bit harder, just to give a little bit more harmonic saturation to things, because brass does really well with this sort of thing. Particularly that raspiness there.
Picks it out.
Yeah, sort of give that extra little bit of grit to it. Tape again for the same reason.
Would you normally do this? I got you to solo the brass. Would you normally do this stage in isolation?
Probably flip back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah. for demonstration purposes, definitely keeping it solid so you can hear what's going on. But yeah, I would listen. So these are sort of my sort of analog things, but I am using a bit more sort of saturation there just to pull things out a bit. Now, the brass in general, I want the warmth of that sort of 200-ish hertz range. Horns becoming a little bit problematic there, but generally, I want that warmth. And we'll deal with the horns separately because this is the whole brass track. The sort of raspiness that you get is around 5K. You can hear the rasp there. But this area here, we are just pulling down with a dynamic EQ very, very carefully.
Because you don't want to destroy the character of the brass.
And that's sort of a slightly less pleasurable sound, a pleasant sound, I should say. So that's what's going on with that, and we'll sort of do it before and after. So again, a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter, a little bit cleaner.
Definitely brighter. I think the brightness is the most obvious thing with that.
Yeah, hearing top end is one of the easier things to hear when you're sort of just getting started with mixing, which is why people tend to push the top end too much, actually. So yeah. Next, wind.
In fact, it's wind's last, isn't it? This is our last section.
Yep. So let's get a nice bit of wind going.
Nice bit of wind.
Yes. Let's just have this section here.
Yeah. All right.
Now, winds are notorious for having resonance. So I'm using this, which is Soothe, which is a really great plug-in, and the sharpness is somewhat gentle. Selectivity, I'm saying, will do hone in on those parts a little bit more, and I'm really looking for the things that stick out. So it's not doing too much. Actually, I'm going to push this all the way up so you can sort of hear what's going on. Without. Hear that resonance that we're getting there from the was it the clarinet or the flute that we're getting it from? I think it's mainly the clarinet. Yeah. So that sort of resonance that we're getting, we're trying to sort of just tame that a little bit.
Now it's obvious.
But we don't want that much.
Sometimes it needs you to really to point out to us what it is that's causing the issues. For me, at least, I don't want to speak for everyone at home. To then be like, oh, do you know what? That is what I can hear, because you can sort of feel it without being able to identify it. I guess that's what comes with experience and practice.
Yep. Yeah, it really does. I mean, it's like I said many times, that mixing is like learning an instrument. It takes you time to get there, to be able to hear those things. So there's that. I've got it set to mid-side, so it's sort of affecting the sides and the middle of the signals slightly separately, because at this stage, if something over there is on the sides is becoming problematic, then I only want to sort of adjust those frequencies, and I don't want to really mess with the stuff that's in the middle, which is okay. But I am linking it by 50% as well, so it's not completely off balance.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. Then I've got my console and my tape as before for the same reasons. Yeah. And now I also have this on here, which is another compressor. LA2A, quite a gentle, slow compressor, and it's not doing very much. But where these things do poke out, I'm trying to sort of level things out a little bit. So remember when I said that clarinet, we're getting lost a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of even it out so we don't lose it quite as much in the piece. Let's solo that. So it's just a little bit, it's just catching those peaks and pulling them down closer to the quieter parts so that we can get a more even sound overall. And also it does colour the sound a little bit as well.
I play again.
Okay. And finally, I just want to boost the top end a little bit just to get a little bit more brightness.
It's a very solitary looking EQ curve there.
Just a little bit of brightness to add to the winds. There we go.
Yep.
So just giving it a little bit more air in the top end. And that is our first layer of bus processing.
Awesome. Should we have a quick listen and see what that all sounds like together then before we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oops.
Nice.
Cool. So we've got a nice, sort of a cleaner sound going on, and everything just feels a little bit tighter and a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter. Yep. Still some issues there to sort out. Still some creative decisions. So I was listening to those Soltasto violins, thinking they could be louder. There's a few things that I want. And the bassoon, when it first came in, was too loud, but then later on it settled down. So things to look at later. But generally speaking, our buses are sounding okay.
Fantastic. So now we've done that process, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to look at the percussion, because we haven't looked at that yet. And then we're going to go on to some more spatial stuff and also adding some reverb. So we'll see you in the next video.